It was the middle of July in Austin, and my house had officially become a sweat lodge. The AC unit died sometime around 2 a.m., and by morning, my sheets were soaked, my patience was gone, and my dog had taken refuge in the one shady tile patch left in the kitchen. I wasn't looking for anything special when I made the service call. Honestly, I just wanted to be able to breathe again without peeling off a layer of skin. But when I opened the door and saw him, broad-shouldered, sunburned, baseball cap pulled low, and a clipboard in one hand, I swear to God, the temperature jumped another 5 degrees. "Hey," he said, voice rough like gravel and coffee. "AC repair?" "That'd be me," I replied, stepping aside. "House is hotter than hell." "Welcome to it." He chuckled, walking past me with a heavy steel toolbox and a quiet confidence that told me he actually knew what he was doing. His shirt, faded navy, sleeves stretched tight around his arms, had a name tag stitched in cursive, Tanner. He wasn't what you'd call conventionally pretty. He was real. Mid-40s, maybe late. Graying at the temples. Tan skin with calloused hands and a small scar just under his right eye. He looked like someone who'd seen some things and didn't feel the need to prove it. "Where's the unit?" he asked, glancing up toward the ceiling vents. "Upstairs hallway. But the thermostat's downstairs, if you want to take a look first." He nodded, already scanning the walls, the corners, the way sunlight cut through the living room. I led him through the house, pretending not to notice the way his eyes landed on me for just a little too long when I peeled off my sweat-damp t-shirt and tossed it on the stair rail. "It's fine," I said, catching his glance. "I've accepted that modesty dies when your house turns into a sauna." He grinned. "Trust me, I've seen worse." "But have you seen better?" I said, half joking. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The next hour was spent in a rhythm of clicks, taps, and low curses as he moved between the unit outside and the dusty ductwork in the attic. I brought him water. He took it with a simple thanks, but let his fingers graze mine when he did. Once. Then again. Little things. But they added up. He worked quietly, efficiently, but every now and then, his voice would drop as he explained something, and it hit me right in the gut. That kind of voice that lives low in the chest. Not performative. Just present. "You got someone living here with you?" he asked casually while resetting the thermostat. "Nope. Just me." "Well, me and the dog." He nodded. "Nice. Quiet. You." He hesitated. "Divorced. No kids. Just work. And the occasional poker night." There was a pause. The air between us thick, like more was supposed to be said but wasn't. Finally, I asked, "You always this hot when you're fixing broken things?" That got him. He looked up from the panel, eyes catching mine full on now, no more flickers. "You always this bold when you're sweating through your shorts?" I shrugged. "Heat makes me honest." He smirked, setting his wrench down slowly. "That's so." The silence stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was loaded. Tight. He stepped back from the wall, wiping his hands on a rag tucked into his back pocket, and I caught myself staring at the way his shirt clung to the center of his back, soaked through in all the right places. "It's gonna take a couple hours to fully cool down," he said, nodding toward the vents. "But you'll feel it kicking in soon." I walked a little closer. "I already do." He didn't flinch. "You saying that to everyone with a toolbox, or just me?" "Just you, Tanner." He gave a small nod, approving, amused, and let his eyes linger this time. "Well," he said, stepping just slightly closer. "Good to know." I didn't touch him. Not yet. But something shifted between us in that moment. Not flirtation. Not politeness. Something open. Something that said, "This isn't just heat in the air. This is between us." Tanner didn't leave right away. He could have. The unit was humming again, air slowly filtering back into the vents, the worst of the heat starting to lift off the tile floors and kitchen counters like a retreating tide. But instead of packing up and heading for the next service call, he lingered, one boot resting on the bottom stair, thumb hooked through a belt loop, towel slung over his shoulder like he had nowhere better to be. "You want a beer?" I asked, half hoping he'd say no, half praying he'd say yes. He gave me that same crooked grin. "You offering to cool me down or heat me up?" I didn't blink. Why not both? So we stood there, me in shorts, still shirtless, him with sweat drying across his chest under a half-unbuttoned work shirt, cracking open 2 cold bottles like it was the most natural thing in the world. Hey, thank you for listening up to this point. Leave a comment below. It really means a lot and helps grow the channel. Thank you so much. Now, let's get back to the story. The first sip was cold and sharp, and I watched the way his throat moved when he drank, slow and deliberate. The kind of thing you don't notice until you're looking too hard. "So," he said, leaning back against the counter, eyes skimming across the kitchen. "You always live like this? Plants everywhere, vinyl stacked by the record player, dog that doesn't bark once?" I shrugged. Got tired of the city noise. Tired of people not staying. He nodded slowly, like he understood something I hadn't actually said out loud. "I used to move around a lot," he offered. "Stayed busy. Slept wherever the job sent me. Then one day, I woke up and realized I hadn't let anyone close in years." I looked at him. "And now?" He took a long sip, trying to slow down. There was a long silence after that, the kind where nothing needed to be filled. Just the hum of the refrigerator, the soft blow of newly cooled air moving through the ductwork, and the warmth, different now, not just from the heat outside, but from something deeper starting to rise between us. Then he said it quiet, almost like a dare. "You gonna stand there looking at me, or are you gonna do something about it?" My heart thudded once, then again, faster. I stepped closer, slow but certain, and placed my hand gently on his chest. It was still warm, the fabric of his shirt sticking just slightly to his skin. His breath hitched, barely, but he didn't move away. "I didn't want to push," I said. He looked down at me, steady, grounded. "You're not pushing. You're inviting." That was all I needed. The first kiss was cautious, two men who had danced through a long day of flirtation and tension finally closing the gap. His lips were rough, but his mouth was soft, and he kissed like he knew exactly how long I'd been waiting to be really touched again. I pressed in, hands sliding up his chest, over his shoulders. His arms came around my back, strong, sure, pulling me against him. The beer bottle clinked quietly on the counter behind me as I let go of everything except the way he was holding me. He broke the kiss for a breath and whispered, "Been a while for you?" I nodded. "For anything that felt like this?" "Yeah." He touched my face, fingers brushing my jaw with surprising tenderness. "Same." We didn't rush. Didn't stumble down the hallway tearing clothes off. We moved through the house together slowly, lips finding each other again, hands exploring through layers. His shirt came off next, damp, musky, familiar in that way only a working man's scent can be. My hand slid across his chest, down to his waist, feeling the heat radiate off him in waves. When we finally made it to the bedroom, we stood at the edge of the bed, foreheads touching, both of us breathing heavier now. He kissed my neck, down to my shoulder, as his fingers slipped under the waistband of my shorts. I shivered, not from the cold, finally returning through the house, but from the warmth between us. He took his time. We undressed each other with quiet care, hands never in a hurry, mouths meeting again and again between small gasps and low, satisfied groans. His fingers traced my spine. Mine curled behind his neck. And when we finally fell into bed together, skin to skin, I felt something I hadn't in years. Settled. Not just wanted. Not just touched. Known. Afterward, we lay there side by side, a light sheet barely covering us, the fan spinning above. His arm draped across my chest, his thumb tracing circles near my collarbone. He spoke first. That was more than I expected. I smiled. "You mean the air conditioning, or?" He laughed, low and warm. "The whole damn visit. We didn't label it. We didn't say what came next. But he stayed. All night. And when I woke up to the sound of the vents blowing cool, steady air and his body curled around mine like it belonged there, I knew something had just shifted in me I wouldn't be able to undo. He was still there when the sun broke through the blinds. His body was warm against mine, arms slung across my chest, one leg hooked over mine like his muscles didn't remember how to let go. His breathing was deep, rhythmic, and his stubble brushed against my shoulder every time he shifted in his sleep. I lay there for a while, listening to the hum of the air conditioner he'd fixed yesterday, and wondered if I'd just dreamed the whole thing. But when he stirred, eyes still closed, and muttered, "You always stare this much," with a lazy grin pulling across his face. I knew it was real. I kissed his forehead, soft and slow, and said, "Only when the repair guy doesn't leave." He stretched, long and slow, his back arching slightly, muscles shifting beneath sun-kissed skin. "Then maybe I'm charging by the night now." I raised an eyebrow. "You raising your rate?" "Depends on the tip." We both laughed, but beneath the teasing, something more tender lingered. It wasn't just about heat and tension anymore. It was about ease. And I hadn't felt that kind of ease with another man in years. He stayed for coffee. sat at my kitchen table wearing nothing but a pair of my gym shorts and his dog tags, which I hadn't noticed the night before, but now saw glinting slightly against his chest. "You served?" I asked, nodding toward them. "Yeah," he said. "A long time ago. Before I started fixing things that hum." I didn't press. I just reached out and ran a hand along his forearm as he held his coffee mug. His skin was warm, his hand calloused, but his grip when he turned his palm over and laced his fingers with mine was so gentle it made my throat tighten. He finished his coffee in silence, and I could tell he was debating whether to stay longer or do the easier thing, disappear. No one's feelings hurt, no expectations. I'd lived that scene before. I didn't want to live it again. So I said the thing neither of us wanted to say first. "You don't have to run." He looked up at me, really looked, like he was checking to see if I meant it. "I'm not great at staying." "Me neither," I said. "But maybe we don't have to figure all of that out today." He nodded slowly, like I'd given him something he hadn't realized he needed: space. He stayed until noon. We didn't touch much after breakfast. Just sat on the porch, bare feet up on the railing, the dog asleep between us, watching the breeze push the trees around like everything was still figuring itself out. And maybe that's what we were doing too, figuring it out without pushing too hard. When he left, he kissed me at the door. Not a goodbye kiss. Not a see you maybe kiss. Just one soft, deliberate press of his lips to mine that said, "I'm thinking about this too. I've got a few jobs out this way next week," he said as he pulled his hat on, back to the version of himself he wore outside. "You're always welcome to cool off here," I said. He paused, smirked, and said, "Don't tempt me." And then he was gone. The door closed. The room was cool, steady, quiet. But I felt warm. Not from the heat. Not anymore. From hope. The kind that doesn't come loud or fast. The kind that shows up when you least expect it, toolbox in hand, and a look in his eyes that tells you he sees more than your broken vents. He sees you. He texted 3 days later. "You still running cool? Or should I check your filter?" I read it twice, smiling so hard it felt stupid. It wasn't a line. It wasn't a booty call. It was him, Tanner, casually checking in like we were already on a rhythm, and he wasn't trying to scare it off. I replied, "The system's fine, but I've got a fan who's been making noise." He answered with a single word. "Coming." He showed up that evening in the same beat-up work truck, same boots, same sweat-dusted hat, except this time, he wasn't carrying a toolbox. Just a six-pack and a brown paper bag that turned out to be Thai takeout. "I didn't cook," he said, handing me the bag. "But I picked the spicy stuff, just to stay on theme." We ate barefoot on the back deck while the sun dipped low. There was nothing performative between us now, no dancing around the spark. Just quiet teasing, shared glances, knees touching beneath the small table. His arm brushed mine more than once. Neither of us moved away. After we cleared the dishes, he leaned back in his chair, looking out at the sky, and said, "You ever think you'd feel this again?" I didn't pretend not to understand. "Not like this," I said. "Not this easy." He nodded slowly. "Me either." Then, silence. Not awkward. Not heavy. Just the kind of stillness that comes when two people finally exhale after holding their breath too long. We went inside without saying where we were headed. His hand found mine as we passed through the doorway, simple, casual, solid. In the living room, he kissed me without hesitation, pressing me back against the hallway wall like it had been days, not years, since someone last made him feel this hungry and safe. We took our time again. He knew how to kiss like he was learning me, not conquering. His hands moved with intention, smoothing down my sides, cradling the back of my neck, holding me like he needed to remember how I fit against him. Upstairs, we undressed each other slowly. There was no rush in it, just layers peeling off, breath by breath, touch by touch. When I pulled his shirt off, he leaned into my chest for a moment, breathing deep, like the contact calmed something in him. "You okay?" I asked, fingers brushing the back of his neck. He nodded. "Yeah, just haven't done this where I could actually stay after." That landed somewhere deep. I kissed him again, slower this time, more reassurance than invitation, and we fell into bed, limbs tangling naturally, like we'd been doing it for years. There was sex again, real, felt, quiet. Full of the kind of touches you don't rush, the kind of kisses you only give when you're starting to believe it might last. He made sounds against my skin that I wanted to memorize. I whispered things I didn't mean to say aloud. Afterward, we lay side by side, his hand flat on my chest, our bodies cooling under the steady hum of the AC. He turned his head toward me. "You don't scare easy," he said. "Not anymore," I replied. "You used to, but right now? No." He stayed again. No excuses. No fake appointments in the morning. He set his phone on my nightstand like it had always been his, rolled into me, and let out the kind of breath that tells you someone finally let go of whatever they were gripping too tightly. We didn't make a big deal out of it, but he started staying over more often. Once or twice a week turned into 3. Then it was just whenever. He'd show up after work, boots kicked off by the door, his hat left on the kitchen counter, like my house was slowly becoming part of his routine. He never called it his place, but he didn't knock anymore. And neither of us seemed interested in defining things just yet. It was in the little things. He fixed the squeaky hinge on the screen door without me asking, started picking up my brand of coffee on the way over, switched my bathroom light bulbs to warm-tone LEDs and claimed it made the mirror less mean. In return, I cleared space in a drawer, gave him his own towel, bought a second toothbrush, even though he kept forgetting his. I found myself leaning into the rhythm of having him around, his scent in my sheets, his quiet laugh in the mornings, the weight of his hand resting naturally on my knee while we watched terrible movies on the couch. We didn't talk much about the past, but now and then, something would slip through. One night, after dinner, he looked over at me and said, "I was with someone once. Years ago. It didn't end badly, just fizzled. I think I stopped showing up, and he stopped asking me to." I didn't say anything right away, just reached across the table and laced my fingers through his. "I've been that guy on both sides," I said quietly, walking away, or waiting too long for someone to turn around. He nodded slowly. "This feels different." "It is." Later that night, when we made love again, it wasn't about heat. It was about trust, about knowing you can close your eyes and still be held. His body moved over mine like we'd spent a lifetime learning each other's pace, our mouths meeting again and again, slow and deliberate, every touch landing with intention. Afterward, we laid there in the dark, sweat cooling on our skin, the fan humming quietly overhead. "I keep thinking it'll go away," he said. "What?" "This pull. Toward you. Toward all this." I turned to him, reached up, and ran my fingers along his jaw, then stopped fighting it. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw it fully. He wasn't afraid anymore. He kissed me once, slow and steady, and whispered, "Okay." The next morning, he brought me coffee in bed and said he'd rearranged his route for next week. "Thought I'd make you my last stop." Every day. I blinked at him. "You want to end every workday here?" He nodded. "If that's something you'd want." I didn't answer. I just pulled him into bed with one hand, kissed the side of his neck, and said, "Keys are in the drawer. Alarm code's your birthday." He grinned against my shoulder. "You remember that?" "I remember everything." We didn't move in together, not officially, but by the end of the month, Tanner had more stuff in my house than in his own. Work shirts in the laundry basket, his second-best tool belt hanging on the hook by the back door, 2 toothbrushes in the holder, both well-used. He'd still leave early some mornings, boots echoing quietly against the hardwood, but I always woke to a note. A scribbled joke, a half-finished grocery list, once even just, "Still thinking about last night. You good?" And I always was. One Thursday, we were fixing up the garden bed together, him shirtless, me trying not to be obvious about staring, and out of nowhere, he said, "You know, I could have fixed that AC in under an hour." I laughed. "You're kidding." "Nope," he said. Stretched it out. Kept finding excuses. "Checking airflow 3 times? Please. So you stayed hot on purpose?" He smirked. Wasn't the only thing heating up. I tossed a handful of mulch at him. He tackled me in the grass like we were 20 years younger, both of us laughing, limbs tangled under a sky that didn't seem in a rush anymore. That night, we grilled dinner and danced barefoot in the kitchen to a playlist neither of us would admit we made just for each other. And later, when the air was thick and the sheets were kicked to the floor, he kissed me like we were still figuring each other out, like nothing needed to be rushed, because we weren't going anywhere. We fell asleep tangled together, and sometime around 2 a.m., I woke to him murmuring in his sleep. He said my name, just my name, soft and low, like it meant something, like I'd made it all the way into his bones. And maybe I had. Have you ever had someone walk into your life just to fix one small thing and end up staying for the whole damn system? Tell me in the comments. Because sometimes it's not about what's broken. Sometimes it's about who finally shows up when you need to feel whole again.